For those of you who don't know me, I've been hacking since I was very, very young, since preteen. I've previously worked as an independent penetration tester. Before that, I ran the IT operations for a small chain of retail stores here in Manitoba. And I've also hacked a bunch of different companies independently, and somewhat recently became a founder, sort of stumbled into that, but been doing pretty well. If you have any questions about myself or the company, we're hanging out over here. I'm going to try not to speed through this too much, but what we'll cover today are some examples of real-world vulnerabilities. Every vulnerability I'm going to show on the screen is one that we have found, but it's all anonymized. So some of these are unfortunately not fixed, which is part of my rant today. We're going to talk about exploitation paths, so going beyond just alert one in your proof of concepts and actually demonstrating the impact. And we're going to mostly focus on web applications, just because that's our background, that's what we specialize, and that's my bread and butter, really. This talk is still sort of a work in progress, so open to feedback as we're going through. More going to be aimed at offensive security practitioners than anyone else, but yeah, we'll get into it. So one thing, why this is important, and why this is important to me at least, is at GlitchSecure, we help find vulnerabilities. So whether that's through penetration testing or automated security testing through DAST, one of the problems that I've found, as a penetration tester is it's really, really hard to get PMs and developers to fully understand the impact, right? So there's so many times where I'll find a vulnerability and I'm like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. I can steal the user data, or I can, manipulate something, and I'll watch as a week goes by, and then a month goes by, and then a year goes by, and then 5 years go by, and then somebody else exploits it and it's in the news. Meanwhile, it's been sitting there in a report waiting for somebody to get fixed. And so one of my goals for this talk is to really show you some examples of vulnerabilities, some not so fun reports, and then how you can kind of take that vulnerability and really demonstrate the impact, really show it in more depth. Out of curiosity, how many of you are developers? Okay, fair few. How many of you are product managers or in charge of developers? Okay, well, I'm talking to like the three of you. So let's start with something simple, right? Cross-site scripting, we're all familiar. It's an injection type attack, several different types, whether it's reflected, stored, whether you're DOM-based XSS, etc. The impact can really vary on cross-site scripting, right? So a lot of times you'll see a report and it's just something as simple as alert one. How many of you have gotten this vulnerability report before? Yeah. How many of you didn't really prioritize it because of that? Okay, it's fine. You don't have to out yourself for not fixing vulnerabilities. That's fine, right? But a lot of times, security researchers will just sort of say, here we go, alert one, proof of concept, I'm done, give me my bounty, pay me please, as it were. The real problem with this is alert dialogues are boring. First off, that's a problem in my opinion. I like to have a bit of flair when I'm hacking things, like we are hackers after all. They don't really demonstrate impact, right? So I've got an alert. So what? We can annoy people? And they don't really account for protections you might have. So whether you have a CSP or something similar to that, where maybe you can't do anything with that cross-site scripting vulnerability. Maybe it's only self-XSS. And so I'm going to walk through a couple of examples here of how we can do a little bit of a better job. So, one example here is let's steal some cookies, right? Really, really simple. Throw in a fetch request or an SHR request, and just have a get request and append the body. So here on the left, right, we're fetching to third-party domain. We're including the cookie document cookies, and we're seeing that that's getting reflected on the side, right? This is cool, but also still not too exciting. And so I want to highlight a tool, one of the few tools that we do use when we're doing offensive security, EasyXSS. Just as short as alert one, but it gives us all kinds of more information. How many people here have used EasyXSS or a tool like it, like XSS Hunter? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not too many. Tools like this make my life and make my ability to demonstrate things so much easier. So on the left here, we've got We've got, the current URL, we've got the user's IP, we've got session cookies. That's pretty cool. We're starting to make some progress, but what else can we get? Well, we can take screenshots of admin panels, potentially. And so this, again, anonymized example, I just grabbed a random screenshot, but we've done this many a times where drop in a payload, maybe it's a contact form, maybe it's a support center, and now we can see what that support rep can see. I had a live demo planned where I was going to show you JavaScript key logging and remote access control, but I ran out of time, and come talk to me about it later. But the point of that sort of section was, you can do a little bit more to demonstrate cross-site scripting impact without putting in a ton of effort, right? When I'm dropping a payload, I'm self-hosting EasyXSS, XSS.fm. I get all of that information. I have a nice little report I can throw in my vulnerability report to say, hey, not only did we steal cookies, not only did we show a message, but we also got a screenshot. And again, I wish I had shown it here, failing at my own flaws here of demonstrating impact, but also a lot of times we can get keyloggers or remote access to those specific browsers as long as the session is live. So yeah, kind of pretty straightforward there. Kind of speeding through this, so probably have a larger portion for Q&A afterwards, but I'm going to highlight another example here of chaining low-severity vulnerabilities. So a lot of times when you get a pen test report, you'll see, okay, vulnerability A, vulnerability B, vulnerability C, but you don't often see people put all those together and say, hey, we took A, B, and C, and now we have D. And so I'm actually going to pick on Gavin here, who's the next speaker. He found this really good chain on one of our customers recently, where he was able to take a low severity, a medium severity, and get a critical. And so in this example, we have, and this was a real vulnerability, just a publicly accessible API endpoint that generated a AWS S3 key. And so this was anytime you uploaded a file to your user profile, it would basically say, hey, here's your S3 URL, and it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting. What can we do with it? Well, we played around a bit. Maybe we can try and access other files. But you'll notice something there. They're using a UID. And so unless we can disclose those UIDs, severity's kind of low. It's interesting, not good practice, but without the other information, there's not much we can do. So Gavin kept digging. And lo and behold, you visit a user profile, and I see this way too often. Here's a bunch of information. So something as simple as, okay, here's the person's name, their phone number, cool. On its own, hey, we can extract all the users' phone numbers. And a lot of times we'll write a quick script to say, hey, let's go to every single profile and pull this information. But anybody else notice what else is on there? Yes, no? If you take a little bit more closely, they were also revealing a identity image URL. You try and visit that, and no luck. But think back. We found a lower severity finding earlier in the report. Pair those two together. Anyone want to take a guess at what was in that image? Yes, no? Tough crowd. Driver's license. And so we were able to pull those together, get a pre-signed URL, and boom, bada boom. Suddenly we can access anybody's driver's license. So in this specific case, it was an application that required identity verification. They weren't using a third-party provider. They were just saying, hey, come in and upload stuff. Turns out that upload endpoint, same endpoint. Turns out those images, we were able to find those UIDs, and we were able to access them. And so this was, again, a finding Gavin found that really demonstrated, like, hey, we've got a low, we've got a medium. On their own, not a huge impact, but let's chain those together. And now we've got a whole nother finding that we can add to the report, and we can really show, like, here's why you need to deal with that low severity. Here's why you need to deal with that medium, because even if we hadn't found that second vulnerability, somebody's going to, and they're going to exploit it. So moral of the story, don't be afraid to be a little scary. We are hackers, again. Show that real impact. Can you steal information? Show it. Can you perform actions? Do it within reason, within scope. And then also, take some time at the end of an assessment and review your findings and think, how can I mix these together, right? So leave yourself a day or two, go back and say, hey, that one's kind of interesting, but I, reported as low or medium. What were the things that I need to find? Let's see if I can go find those. And so I'm, again, really running through these a little too fast, but my last sort of section here is think like a spammer. So spammers exploit web applications, I feel like, more than anybody. A lot of people are like, oh, nation-state attackers, but realistically, like, spammers are the ones we're seeing actually exploit things. And so think like a spammer, because a lot of times that can help convince a product manager, like, that's a concern they have, here's what we can do about that. So one example we have, and we've both reported this in this forum and seen it, is just lack of rate limiting, right? Hey, you've got a password reset form, or you've got some sort of email triggering thing. Let's just repeat that 100 times and see if we get 100 emails. The problem with this is, a lot of times you can just say, hey, here we go. The server responded. In this case, it was a 302 saying, taking you to the success page. But you can say, hey, here we go. Proof of concept done. Fun, go fix it, right? The problem with this is it doesn't demonstrate impact. So what you can do in a case like this is, again, don't be afraid to be a little scary and wake somebody up, 9 a.m. This is how they start their day. Here's 100 emails. You're sure to get things fixed. But, again, that's still low, medium severity. It's still just kind of an annoyance. You're not really exploiting anything with that. Let's go a little bit deeper. One example, fellow founder of mine, woke up to this, 2,000 emails. hornylocals204.com. This happens all of the time. These kinds of vulnerabilities where you've got maybe a little bit of text injection, you've got no rate limiting. Don't be afraid to craft a message like this, send a few hundred, and be like, this could be you. This could be what you wake up tomorrow to, and suddenly your email provider has blacklisted you because your calendar scheduling tool is trying to get everybody to go to a weird, sketchy hookup site. Another example of this where a lot of times we'll see is open redirect, right? A simple, hey, maybe there's a return URL parameter, or there's a, some other thing that you can put into the URL or into the request to send somebody else. Again, a lot of times we'll see, here's the request, here's the response. It sent me from, ticketman.tld to attacker.glitchsecure.com. Cool, done, right? Well, again, going back to pairing vulnerabilities and going back to, showing impact, what if we can find email injection, right? So take that first example from that founder where you can inject a little bit of stuff, take that open redirect, pair them together. This was an example of one, not Ticketmaster, but a very similar company who hasn't fixed this and isn't our client, so I can shame them a little bit without naming them. But suddenly we can send emails from that customer's, taking a low severity where we can send emails from that customer. We can send out as many emails as we want, but then we can also inject the open redirect URL, and then suddenly, hey, we've got a phishing page. So this is one way I like to demonstrate impact is if we've got all of those, if we've got open redirect, let's create a fake phishing page. It doesn't take much effort. Control S, save the page, open up Paint, cross out the logo, write something. This shows like, hey, it's not hard for an attacker to do this. So again, moral of that story was spammers abuse rate limits and create phishing pages. You should too as an attacker, right? Don't be afraid to send a few hundred emails with permission and scope. Don't get anybody blacklisted, but try and show that impact as much as you can. Create a quick and dirty phishing page. It doesn't have to be functional. You don't have to be logging details, but go to your way to just hit Control S, throw it up online, and just show, hey, like, it's not hard to do this. Again, a lot of times we're not doing stuff, so I think Mike's in the crowd later. A lot of times we'll do actual phishing engagements and larger red team engagements. A lot of times we're just trying to get web developers to fix their buggy applications, whether it's their fault or not. But yeah. Anyways, I'm running ahead of time, as I said. Thanks for coming to my thinly disguised rant or marketing stunt, whatever you want to call it. Happy to answer questions and just nerd out about security, whether it's right now or later. Let me know.
Questions? There's one.
Also, do we have a mic we can run out to people?
Just repeat 'em.
Darn.
Are there any training or simulation tools out there so that your own cybersecurity experts can train themselves in passing these errors?
Training and cybersecurity tools so that your staff can test themselves and train themselves.
Gotcha. I guess it depends what you're looking for. I don't have any specific tools, but I also feel out of touch in specific training, which is maybe unideal. One thing I like to tell developers and product managers and especially SaaS founders, which is who we work with a lot, is like set up error reporting. Oftentimes, like you see a sudden spike in 500s, maybe go look at that and like spend a bit of your day, because a lot of times it's hackers just like poking at stuff, or you do get a lot of noise from just excessive tools, but just a simple error reporting and then like actually having a process of dealing with those error reports, whether they're front end or back end, that we've caught vulnerabilities in our own platform just through that. Yeah.
Anything else?
Anybody want to heckle me? Oh, hey.
Most commonly misunderstood vulnerability.
CSRF, probably? Yeah, I mean, oh, God. I mean, it goes back to demonstrating impact, right? A lot of times, probably CSRF and missing, X-frames, or being able to put stuff in basically an iframe, right? It's like, cool, we've got an iframe, like, so what? With CSRF, if you can actually perform an action, do it. We had one customer who, like, they didn't have a password confirmation, and so you could just change the password. They didn't have any kind of confirmation on the email chain changing, and so it's like, that's a really simple one where you can go in and get a CSRF that you visit one site, performs an action on another, suddenly we've changed the email address, get an email, cool, we're in. I feel like there's other more misunderstood vulnerabilities, but that's just the one that came to my head. I'm also terribly nervous, so
You're
doing my
fine.
best.
Any other questions? Let's thank GlitchWitch for the presentation.
Cool.